Tips from Trestle is brought to you by eMenuChoice Point of Sale, Wyzox AI, and Benny Keith Foods. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Welcome into another episode of Tips from Trestle. Today, joining me is Jenn Kent. With a diverse career spanning 15 years, Jenn has established herself as a leader in project management and business operations across various industries. Currently, she holds the position of Director of Project Management at Harmony Senior Services, where she is dedicated to driving continuous improvement and innovation in SaaS solutions, ensuring her organization remains at the forefront of digital transformation. She has also held roles in the fintech and edtech sectors. Her career began in education and archival work, where she developed a strong foundation in research and communication. In every position, she has prioritized building strong relationships and cultivating a collaborative environment, leveraging diverse perspectives to achieve success. Jenn, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here and to share my experiences with Harmony.
When we did our podcast prep call, I was in awe of the work we're going to talk about that you've done. It was really impressive, and I think a lot of operators can learn from what you've done. But I'd love for you to give us a little bit about your background working in SaaS and with fintech and edtech, and kind of how you got to Harmony doing what you do.
Yeah, well, as you stated in the intro, I did start my career off as an archivist at the Maryland State Archives. And then I was looking for something a little bit more, and I became a teacher in Baltimore City for 4 years. Out of that, I landed myself within edtech, and I really started from the bottom, being a technical support analyst. So learning a learning management system and supporting one of the 25th largest school district in the nation, Baltimore County Public Schools. So really learning that tiered support. And then I became a business analyst with the county and kind of just moved up through ed tech naturally into project management, dabbled in fintech for a little bit. And then I transitioned into this role at Harmony Senior Services. It was a natural role for me. Not knowing the senior living sphere was not a big deal because it was very easy to learn that. But what translated from my past roles was working with vendors and software as a service. And that's really what I do on a day-to-day basis. So as director of project management, I'm helping collaborate cross-functionally with different teams to help get their projects up and running. So for example, I know we're going to be talking about eMenuChoice, the point of sale that we use in our dining department, but my newest project is working with Yardi, our vendor, on e-leasing, so digital documentation. So we just had our kickoff call, and so collaborating with the different departments within Harmony to ensure that they have those project management guidelines, and we're really looking to do that.
It's all fascinating because I think that the behind the scenes, like nuts and bolts of how creators do successfully navigate managing 30, 40, 50 communities, I think a lot of times that gets lost in the shuffle of how much goes into that. And so you mentioned eMenuChoice, and that's really what we're going to talk about, because you have done some amazing work for Harmony around making that transition for your communities a success. And so I'd love for you to tell us, though, let's lay some groundwork about what things looked like before that implementation, and then how you got into this and where the decision was made to make this transition.
Well, I was brought on, eMenuChoice was my first big project. The CTO was actually only almost a year in, not even, and building his team. And quickly it became apparent that there was someone who needed to fill the role of basically an implementation manager for the SaaS products that Harmony needed to adopt. And so for eMenuChoice, I had already come in after the kickoff call and kind of a little bit of the pre-work, and it really stalled until I was brought on board. To my understanding, before this, it was all manual process, right? So dining departments were using manual paper-based process. Staff was recording orders, and for the residents on whatever paper, it wasn't even like a pad or a checkbook. I mean, it just was kind of whatever the community did, which leads to inefficiency, errors. And so the CTO really, in consulting with the VP of dining, needed a solution. So to enhance accuracy, streamline operations, and promote a shift to like digital solutions. And so that was my first big project. And not only have we seen it improve service delivery, but also elevate the dining experience.
In general, for our industry, I'm still fascinated by the fact that it is 2025 and we have so many operators that are still doing manual paper tickets. And I get it, right? A lot of operators maybe see that additional expense that maybe they can't handle. But as we will see, you worked through this process and found so many efficiencies so that the value is there. One of the things that I was super impressed with as we were kind of talking through all of this was the way that you took the internal documents from eMenuChoice and you created your own Harmony Senior Services internal playbook for that. And so when you were kind of taking on the project and learning about how you could improve the process of implementation, what made you realize that you needed to create these resources specific to Harmony? And then how did you go about creating and building that better tool for your operation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, coming fresh off, we did 5 pilots initially, and those were done using the method that eMenuChoice presents to you. And it's still a great way for anyone to get onboarded with their product. But coming into this role and being like, this is your sole focus for like the next, whatever, until the next big project comes on, Harmony gave that space to me to be able to become the subject matter expert and take all that knowledge in from the CSMs and the eMenu staff. So really coming into this, I learned from the pilot, I took it all in, and then I had a moment where I was like, wow, I need to like rinse and repeat this 40 more times. And so coming from my career experiences, I've always made some sort of playbook or technical documentation, especially like I reference back to Baltimore County School, like 125,000 students or 10,000 teachers, and you have to disseminate information somehow. So eMenuChoice has a lot of great support on their website, but I needed something that was focused on user friendliness, searchability, and included step-by-step guides that were able to help the communities onboard asynchronously, so at their own pace, or access this information at any time that they need it. Because I'm more of a 9-to-5 employee, and they're working sometimes 7 a.m, getting breakfast started, or till 6, 7 at night. Well, I'm always available. It's just you want to make this as accessible as possible. So what I did was really also harmonize the way that Harmony wanted to use menu. So we wanted to obviously give the communities like autonomy of their own site, but we wanted to present them with guidelines. And the playbook offers that guidance for, say, how users are managed and added. And not only is it showing them the correct way so that a server only gets place orders and they don't have the ability to cancel an order or change a resident's profile, but it's also so it looks the same throughout the organization. So when our support team goes in and helps, they have the playbook A to reference for themselves as the support team, but also B, they're like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. You have this set up incorrectly. And they're able to give that feedback to the community. It also helps grow that trust and support, knowing that the community has everything they need to be successful as well.
For me, when you think about the point of sale rollouts that I've been a part of, everyone is unique to the operator, right? Every system is going to be unique. Yes, everybody's looking for the same functionalities perhaps or whatever. But like you said, you had a distinct way you wanted to use the software, a distinct way you wanted to use the system. And by creating that internal version of a playbook, it really makes a lot of sense, like you said, to build that trust. And so one of the other things that I found fascinating as you were walking me through everything is the way you approached the cross-departmental needs. Because I think a lot of times when you look at a program like a point of sale system, everybody thinks, oh, that's it for dining. Dining needs to use that. So let's just train our chefs and our managers over there and we're good to go. But there are so many other departments that are touching this. So as you were doing this immersive like learning and implementation, why was that role-based approach that you took to implementation so important? And then how did you go through what each position needed to learn and needed to know?
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenuChoice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenuChoice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenuChoice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenuChoice, transforming dining for senior living.
I think the number one word I've had encompassed in one word would be accountability. Because not that the executive director needs to know the bells and whistles on how to do every single thing in eMenu, but they need to know how to do it if they have to cover for their dining director, or if they have to go hop in and they're down on servers and they need to go pick up an iPad and lend that hand for a lunch shift or a dinner shift. So overall, they should have that general knowledge. And because eMenu is so easy and user-friendly, it takes a couple of minutes, less than 15 minutes to try to look at the playbook, look at the videos that we made, and just try to learn how to place an order for a shift. So it was really important from accountability, but also obviously using that in a different capacity. We also have business office managers who are also taught how to use the system. And what I've implemented is RACI checklist, so that each one of those roles for the tasks that are needed know who is responsible, but also everyone's accountable to kind of at least know where to go to find the information if they have to slip into that role. So, for example, our business office managers, or BOMs, as they'll be referring to moving on, they're responsible for the guest checkout using Square. So we use the Square system to close an order and allow a guest to, by default, they can let the resident pay for them. But if they want to pay with a credit card, they go up to the concierge. The concierge will close an order and use the Square system to check them out. The BOM or specialist oversees the concierge. So the concierge needs to know how that is to then implement what we have done, implement a train the trainer model, so that they ensure that their staff knows how to do that efficiently up at the front. The BOM also is responsible for adding new staff in when someone's hired, or inactivate staff when someone's turned. But then for user management, it's the dining's responsibility to add a new server. So every server is a staff member, but not every staff member is a server, and use the system. So knowing those roles and knowing the tasks that need to be done really helps with the overall accountability and just the overall operational success of the program.
Yeah, like you said, so many hands can get in there, and if you're not careful, it can get wildly out of control.
Yes.
Especially when you take that and you multiply it out of one community over 40 communities. I can't imagine the kind of headache that could create if you don't properly systematize everything. One thing that I think is fascinating in this whole program and project that you've taken on is your background as a teacher. Right. I think having that experience when we talked about this initially, it really influenced the way you approached developing kind of these internal mechanisms. And so using that background, how did you take that and then balance the need for all of this information that everybody needs to understand, but then make it accessible for people maybe with different learning styles or different ways of taking in information?
Yeah, so coming from that teaching background, I really understand the importance of catering to diverse learning styles while also ensuring that information remains accessible and comprehensive. So to achieve this, incorporated that playbook that we keep talking about, but also a variety of other resources. So we provided not only that written playbook that it's a PDF and you can use a table of contents to just zip right down to the topic that you need. But we've also incorporated into our SharePoint a whole page dedicated to eMenuChoice that starts with simply how to log into eMenuChoice. The visual aids that are in the playbook are provided for those who prefer reading and then need visual aids for those who like infographics and to support those visual learners. But we also have videos for those who are more visually learning. So they can have the playbook up too and see like the exact step-by-step. But they also can have the video up, which we try to strive for like 90 seconds or less. Yeah. How to log in, how to add a new user. And then we also have like FAQs. So we're constantly having that continuous feedback as we have onboarded, and we put the high flying FAQs on the eMenu page, and we're able to put those things on there for quick access to see that. But then if someone brings up a topic that's like, oh, that's a great idea, let's go make an FAQ for it. So just ensuring that all these materials are clearly organized, they're easy to navigate, and the user can find the content, engage with the content at their own pace and their preferred learning style. So ensuring that your community or the staff have multiple pathways to access the material, I think is really what I took from my past experience and making that self-service, self-learning environment.
And it's so important, right? When we think about the breadth of generations that are actually working in our communities, there's at least 4. We're getting to the point now where almost 5 generations, and there are so many different ways of learning and how people take in information. You almost have to do that, I think, to be successful.
Yes. I mean, I'm fresh off the DISH conference from last week in Atlanta. We brought that up. You're going to have a server who, this is a real life example. We had a server when I onboarded my first community who was just like boo-hooing the system, kind of had nails. And so what we got her was a stylus in order to use the iPad. But she was in the older generation and just had a phone and everything, but just was shoving her nose up to the technology. Yeah. And then we had a server who worked Chick-fil-A and all they do is work on the iPad. And so my advice to any operators is if you do have that type of scenario, here that younger generation server with the older generation, and you will find that they gel, they work together. It's kind of awesome to see on site when that happens.
Yeah. And none of that comes together unless you have, like you said, all these different ways to show and teach, or the people to be able to find the right way to collaborate and work together on that training. It's invaluable. It's one of the pieces of the puzzle I think we overlooked when we do training and development, for sure. One of the things that I think is so important is every community, regardless if you are a single site by yourself or if you've got 100 locations, every community needs to have some customization when it comes to programs. Every corporate team probably has the, programs for menus and service and things of those natures. And so that was something that as you were looking at integration, you realized needed to happen. Harmony has this simply your choice menu program that you shared with me. And you kind of had to work hand in hand with your VP of dining to integrate that. And so when you look at vendor systems in general, point of sale or the project you mentioned that you're working on now, how important is it to really try and make sure that your existing brand and processes work with those vendors as opposed to the other way, like trying to change your brand and processes to the system?
For over a century, Benny Keith has been a trusted leader in the food service industry. As a broadline distributor, we offer an extensive selection of products, delivering to 21 states through 10 distribution centers. We can help you create a thriving culinary culture by pairing quality products with customized solutions that elevate your residents' dining experience. Our team of registered dietitians provide unmatched customer service by modifying menus, selecting recipes, ensuring regulatory compliance, and more. Quality, value, and service are at the heart of everything we do. Benny Keith Foods puts the care back in healthcare.
So with this, yes, I collaborate with the VP in dining. And so these are all his babies of taking the dining department and branding it. So he's rolled out Simply Your Choice, which is our a la carte menu. He's worked with our VP of memory care, and together they rolled out a program called Dining with Dignity for the memory care. He's on a roll. We have Simply Your Dessert. Next, we're going to do Simply Your Service, which is a program designed to onboard the dining staff. But the first few are geared towards the different food and how it's served and everything. So working with him, he maintains and builds that brand. And so then I'm that liaison to the vendor, working with them to make that Simply Your Choice become a reality within the software. So it's really working hand in hand, making sure your communication and collaboration is on point, and then just making sure that the vendor can produce what the department wants. And so it was a really simple task to create a menu template for the Simply Your Choice. And now we have going on for Simply Your Choice, the summer menu. And soon on the beginning of October, I'll work with him to get the new fall winter menu, and we'll implement that. And it's really more of a testament to eMenuChoice, allowing us to have ease in putting the menu in just once, and then they're able to copy it to all 45 communities regions, which is awesome. It doesn't have to be done manually. So in terms of integrating vendor systems, I think the key is across the board to ensure your company's brand consistency, because that maintains the trust with the resident, but also the internal employees, that they're all under this one umbrella and this one goal of the company. And so it's fun. I think Harmony is really looking to do a lot more branding and bring a lot of this technology under one ecosystem. It's exciting to be able to kind of have that. It feels great because it's that technology piece, but I'm not always behind the computer because I know what I'm doing really does touch the residents and the staff and the communities, which I think is a different feeling from what I felt in definitely fintech or even ed tech. I wasn't able to see it manifest as much.
Yeah.
But here I'm able to go walk into a community and walk into the dining room and see them using eMenuChoice, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I think that touch is so important, right? Because especially when you think about technology, you're living for whatever reason has this disconnect with technology, or at least it used to. I feel it has improved, and there's this understanding that technology is needed. But I think some of that goes to what you're saying about the concern of a disconnect about the people we're serving. And so keeping all of that in mind where, hey, we've created this brand, we've built this trust with our residents. How do we take that and implement it with technology and make sure that it can stay consistent and still do what we want it to do? I think there's a value in what you're talking about that is invaluable to operators who are smart. We have listeners here who really want to know, okay, this high level thinking is great, but let's get real. Let's talk practical, right? Like, I want to do this. I've got 10 communities. What are some of the things, because you mentioned there were some hard lessons you learned. How can this conversation help an operator maybe avoid some of those things that you learned? What would you say would be kind of the top 3 or 4 must do items that they should prioritize before going live with any new system, whether it's point of sale like eMenu or anything else?
Yeah. Okay. So top 3, I'm going to go with 3. You definitely need to have an implementation plan. So you need to know exactly from kickoff to training to go live to adoption and support. You need to have eyes on the meta of those steps, those milestones, but also the details that need to happen. That's the only way that you are going to avoid and mitigate any risk. So really having that project plan, that implementation plan thought out. And that didn't manifest for me until after I got through the first 5 pilots. So that's a sub for number 1. Definitely do pilots, learn from your pilots, debrief before you go and try to implement throughout. Because what I was able to do was really, again, analyze everything that needed to be done, from hardware to making sure staff was trained or the processes were in place. And then basically able to then rinse and repeat that for success for the next 40. So definitely implementation project plan. The next is the hardware. So for eMenuChoice, there were 10 pieces of hardware that needed to be ordered. I worked with our director of IT. I worked hand in hand with her. And you know how I did that? They're an Excel spreadsheet. Very, very simple. Made one tab that she had. I had all my cohorts in order. She knew when the go live was. Now the go lives changed, but the order of everything wasn't going to change. And it's okay if they received their printers or iPads and they weren't going to go live for the next 3 weeks. They were there and they were on site and ready to go when they needed to be, because that's going to really hold up your implementation. And then I also had a tracker for the milestones that I mentioned in number 1. So I was able to track those milestones when someone was ready to go live, the go live date. I even put in the names of the executive directors, the regional dining services. So it was all on one page. So when I need to go write an email or track someone down and ask them to ensure that they did something, everything was on one sheet for me. So it was separate from my project plan, but it was what I called my eMenu tracker.
Yeah.
And then third, definitely the supply. More pertains to eMenuChoice, but with the printers, they give you a very little thing of paper to test the printer and only one thing of ink. And so for the first go live, I was like, oh, we can use this paper. No, you can't. It's not enough paper for the amount of tickets that come out for a community that has a census of like 100 residents. So I had to haul to Staples and get that. But now there's a link in the playbook with the Staples link. So those would be my 3 learnings and advice for implementing really any type of hardware or software.
Yeah. The last one really brings back some PTSD from my experiences of, like you said, oh, it came with paper. Oh, we're fine. We're great. And then you get into the middle of a service and you're just like, where's the paper, guys?
Exactly.
So, and I love that you talked about building a tracker, right? I know from experience that the first system I ever tried to roll out, we didn't do that. And it was super painful. And I think, like you said, from that stem to stern of let's think about this whole process. And then from your learning is so invaluable, because that's the best way to, especially if you're doing, like you said, 40 plus locations.
Yeah, it was invaluable.
Yeah. So when you think about all of this that you've built and created to make this transition seamlessly, what's the approach you take to keeping things current without overwhelming the teams out in the field, whether it's the regional directors or the community directors? What's that approach look like?
Well, I would say, thankfully, with eMenu, there's not a ton that gets updated on a weekly or monthly basis. So we don't have to have a very robust approach to sending update. We already, again, in collaboration with the VP of dining, he has weekly calls that are just recurring every Monday. So if there's something that's a new feature or something that we're going live with, we hop on that call, we're able to talk about that new feature. For example, it was always live, but it was like a walk, crawl, run instance. Like they had eMenu allows a resident portal to order menus, order meals from, but we were like, let's let them know that that's there until after we've gone live with all 45. So another little tip, like walk, crawl, run. And so we were running. And so we said, all right, let's make this announcement now, and made a sub page on the eMenu SharePoint and put all the information on there, made flyers for the sales department to post about it, made resident instruction, followed up with those two things with videos of how an admin needs to go and manually give the resident their access to their portal. So everything's available to them. So we emailed out, hey, this is available, the link to that page, that intranet page. We communicated via email, hopped on the weekly dining calls, and then just ensure that, there's that continuous communication of, hey, this is live. And ultimately something for it to be successful, again, is the accountability from the top down of the executive director to ensure that it's, flourishing.
Yeah. The thing that stood out in there that you mentioned this earlier is kind of that cross-departmental ownership, and you just mentioned accountability, because obviously the VP of dining could on his call say, oh, by the way, this is coming, this is what we're doing. But you're the one responsible for like the success of all of the implementation and the resources and maintaining all of that.
Right.
It won't happen unless you have that cross-departmental collaboration. And so I think that it's there and it has to be maintained throughout. And so,
right. Yes. And it also maintaining that continuous feedback loop, right? That continuous improvement. And not only does it help with improvement of our processes or how we're doing it, but even how we manage the resources that we're providing, right? Because if something's not working, we adjust and try it a different way for something.
Definitely. So as we wrap up here, I think one of the things that I'd want to make sure that our listeners take away is, yes, we've talked about the work you did with eMenuChoice on that project, but this whole approach that you've taken kind of transcends not just point of sale, but it's for any system or any technology. And so if you were to take like a step back and look at like the 50,000 foot like version of this conversation, what would be your like one piece of advice for how they can take ownership of the process rather than just relying on vendor support to make it a success?
One piece of advice, I have 7, but I think I can
lay them all for us.
Yeah, because I think it really helps. So number one, you definitely want to find and develop that internal expertise. So find your champion, whether that is someone at a corporate level or someone who you have to find at the community level. Make sure they understand the new technology and they're the subject matter expert, and then empower them to manage and be able to troubleshoot that system. So that's one. I've already mentioned this, but really create that clear project plan. You need to have goals, you need to have timelines, milestones, and then really responsibilities, because the tasks only get done by the people. 3, you really want to engage stakeholders early. So even if you don't have everything ready to go, entice them. Say, hey, this is coming. We have a really big implementation on the cusp of October 1 that's going live. And on the front page of our intranet on what we call the Harmony Hub, we have a little countdown clock, like this is coming. So we want to have that, get people excited for the technology, because it is exciting and it's only going to make their lives easier within the community. Again, coming back to that communication, you want to establish a cadence of check-ins with, if you need to, with the vendor, but also the team that you're training. one thing that I've implemented, even though we're in the adoption of eMenuChoice, and it's not just for eMenuChoice, it's for all the products and software I support, but I have on every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 to 3 p.m., which is open office hours. So I say, hop on for 5 minutes, ask your question and hop off, or stay on for the full 60 and hear the questions of your colleagues or learn something new, or we can dive into a problem. Having that open floor and be able to offer that support also builds the trust within the community. Couple more. So you definitely want to test before you implement anything. So ensuring, and that goes back to the paper and the ink. So having your supply testing. What we did with eMenuChoice is we added fake residents in there so that folks can test on those residents versus, testing on somebody's account. But I know a lot of software offers sandboxes for people and communities to learn the technology. So ensure that you have that baked into your project plan. 2 more, document everything. I think you can see that I've done that, especially in my playbook. But not only like the operation of it, but also record decision and any changes that need to be made in the overall process, because I am fully confident that if I were to take on another position in another company, that eMenuChoice would still be successful if I was not here. And lastly, have that continuous feedback loop and welcome any feedback from your communities, how matter small or big it is, where you can evaluate and then iterate upon everything that you've done.
Yeah, all great advice. And I think that kind of lays out the success plan for any sort of implementation like what you've done. And so, well, Jenn, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate your time. I'd love for you to share with the listeners any way that they could contact you if they want to pick your brain about an implementation, or have you maybe answer a question about something they're working on.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jenn Kent, JENNKENT, or you can email me with my Harmony email address. It's jkent@harmonyseniorservices.com. Would love to hear from you.
Perfect. Well, Jenn, thank you so much for kind of helping us crawl, walk, run through this process. I think that's the takeaway in all of this is get prepared and kind of go through methodically. So I appreciate your time and for joining us today on Tips from Trestle.
It was my pleasure, Aaron. Thank you so much. Take care.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.